Picture this. A sergeant in the Ohio State Highway Patrol stands beside a railroad crossing on a damp May afternoon, a 12-gauge shotgun pressed against his shoulder. A few feet to his left, a state trooper stands with another shotgun, this one loaded with slugs. Both men are watching the tracks. They can already hear what's coming, a roaring, metallic howl from the north. Behind this massive locomotive stretches a chain of freight cars almost half a mile long, with 2 tank cars full of toxic chemicals. So stow your tray tables, fasten your seatbelts, and prepare for some extreme turbulence, because this is Final Boarding Call.
And it's not always a plain episode.
I know, surprise, not a plain episode. Hello and welcome to Final Boarding Call. I'm your disaster-obsessed host, Alice.
And I'm just Zach. Still.
That's the way I like it.
Somebody has to.
Before we dive in, a quick reminder to you, please rate, review, subscribe, wherever you get your podcasts. And this is a listener-recommended episode. So I've got to give a shout out to Michael. Thank you.
We be doing it.
Yeah. Most people only know this story secondhand through Tony Scott's 2010 movie. What's the movie?
Train?
Unstoppable.
Oh, I do know that movie too.
Yep. Who's in it?
Denzel.
Yep.
He my boy.
I was like, Zach knows this. It's got Denzel Washington and Chris Pine. And when I say it's very loosely, that is a loose interpretation of this story.
Not everything's the most cinematic. You got to make some stuff up.
Correct. Sources included deeply reported 2002 Reader's Digest feature by William M. Hendryx, Jesse Hicks reporting for Popular Mechanics, videos by some YouTubers, and the Federal Railroad Administration's incident memo. And there's a ton of sources, so go look in the show notes if that's your thing.
Or don't. If you're just here for a good story, it's fine too.
If you're here for a good story, buckle up, because this one is crazy. It's just before 6:30 in the morning on Tuesday, May 15th, 2001, in Walbridge, Ohio, a small village just southeast of Toledo. 55 degrees Fahrenheit and about 13 degrees Celsius. There you go. A light rain is falling. Not a storm, just enough to slick the rails and the metal ladders on the sides of the locomotives. Just enough to matter later in ways that nobody is paying attention to yet. A 3-man crew is clocking in at Stanley Yard, the largest classification yard in the region. CSX transportation runs about 20,000 miles of track across the eastern United States.
Wow.
I know. And Stanley Yard is one of its major hubs. Trains roll in from all over the eastern half of the country. They get pulled apart. They get reassembled into new trains, heading new places, and they roll back out. Like when you were a little kid, playing with trains. Except real and massive.
Some people, when they were little kids.
Oh, I liked trains. Most rail yards do this work the slow way, with locomotives shoving cars around on flat ground. Stanley Yard does it the fast way. It's what's called a hump yard.
Naturally. I don't know what else it would be called.
Built around an artificial hill. So a locomotive shoves a string of freight cars up to the top, and then yard workers uncouple them, and gravity pulls each car down the other side. I know. As the cars roll down, automated switches steer them onto the right destination track.
All right, then.
So it's you go right, you go left, and you're building different train configurations. I think it's really cool. Hump yards are efficient and they're also expensive, which is why a lot of them are getting torn out today. But in 2001, Stanley Yard is humming. The crew on duty has 3 men: an engineer, a conductor, and a brakeman. Their job is the unglamorous backbone of railroad work, assembling and disassembling trains. The engineer drives the locomotive. Most people probably could have figured that one out. However, what not many people know is that the conductor and the brakeman work on the ground, throwing switches, checking connections, and acting as the engineer's eyes when the train is too long for him to see what's happening in the back. They communicate by radio. Stop in 3 cars. Stop in 2. Stop now. It's a rhythm that these men have done thousands of times. The engineer at the controls is a 35-year railroad veteran. That's a lot of years. I've been working on the railroad. He started in 1966 with the Pennsylvania Railroad. By 2001, he is the second most senior engineer working out of Stanley Yard.
Wow.
Yeah. And he's got a clean disciplinary record. CSX has never publicly released his name, and I am going to honor that. I didn't go dig in the black internet trying to find it. Partially because he asked for it to be anonymous, and partly because what happens next, well, clearly he is a contributing factor to what happens, is the kind of mistake the FRA will later say could have been committed by anyone. So we're going to chalk this one up to,
oops.
We're all only human, after all. Around 11:30 in the morning, the crew gets a new assignment. Assemble a string of 47 freight cars and get them ready for departure. 47.
That's a humping big number.
25 are completely empty.
Then what's the point? I don't understand.
22 are loaded. Together, they weigh nearly 3,000 tons. Yeah. 2 of those loaded cars are tank cars carrying 30,000 gallons each, around 113,000 liters apiece, of a chemical called molten phenol.
Ooh, sounds fun.
So phenol is one of those substances that most people have never heard of, but it's everywhere in modern life. It's a foundational ingredient in plastics, dyes, glues, paints, detergents, and a long list of pharmaceutical drugs.
Every pharmaceutical drug is made of plastic.
Because obviously, if it's good for the glue, it's good for you.
There it is.
Okay.
That's a slogan right there.
Thank you. Thank you. In its raw form, it's also very dangerous. Direct skin contact causes severe chemical burns. Ingestion can be fatal. It releases flammable vapors. And the reason it's described as molten is that pure phenol is solid at room temperature, which is really fascinating to think about. It has to be heated to roughly 41 Celsius, which is 105 Fahrenheit, to flow as a liquid. The tank cars carrying it are heated and insulated, like enormous rolling thermoses.
Got to keep that coffee hot.
But if one ruptures, you don't just have a chemical spill. You have a hot chemical spill, releasing toxic fumes with a high probability of catching fire. So phenol has shown up in real U.S. rail derailments before, and the hazmat response treats it seriously. This is not just a fire risk, it's a toxic spill requiring evacuations and air monitoring before anyone can get close. The locomotive assigned to move all of this around the yard is CSX 8888. She's an EMD SD42, if you're a train nerd, built in August of 1977, almost 24 years old on the day of our story. The SD42 is one of the great workhorses
We
of
love a workhorse.
American railroading. Look, have we had a train workhorse? Nope. This is our first.
What if we had a horse workhorse?
Oh, send in your stories. I will totally tell a horse story on this podcast.
I knew you would.
Roughly 4,000 of them rolled out of the factory between 1972 and 1986. That's a lot. And one reference book literally called them as common as house sparrows. So if you've seen a freight train in the last 50 years, there's a dang good chance that an SD42 was pulling it. Mechanically, this is a diesel-electric locomotive. The diesel engine doesn't actually turn the wheels. It generates electricity, and that electricity feeds electric motors mounted on the axles. Same basic principle as a hybrid car. The advantage is enormous torque at low speeds, which is exactly what you want when you're trying to move 3,000 tons of freight from a standstill. She weighs about 190 tons, puts out 3,000 horsepower, and can hit a top speed of around 65 miles per hour, just over 100 kilometers per hour. She started life as Conrail 6410, when Conrail was carved up between CSX and Norfolk Southern in 1999. This particular locomotive ended up with CSX. She got a new paint job, and she got renumbered. By pure coincidence. The coincidence genre fiction writers can't resist. The number she pulled out of the renumbering hat
was 8888.
8888. On the morning of May 15th, 2001, she's just another working locomotive. But by the end of the afternoon, every railroader in the country will know her name. The crew couples 8888 to the front of the 47-car string and starts moving it. The plan is straightforward. Pull the cars out of one yard track, push them into another, get them lined up for departure. It's standard yard work. The conductor and the brakemen are on the ground. The engineer is alone in the cab. The train is creeping along at around 11 miles per hour. It's walking pace. A light jog would allow you to keep up with it.
11 miles an hour is still decent pace for people. People walk at 3 miles an hour.
I jog. When I'm jogging, I'm...
You mean wogging?
Wogging. When I'm wogging. All right. I guess it depends on how long your legs are and how enthusiastic of a jogger you are.
Yeah, you sprint at 3 with your short legs.
And then the conductor sees something up ahead that doesn't look right. A track switch. The switch that decides which set of rails a train will go onto is in the wrong position. And if the train hits it, the switch itself could be damaged or the train could derail right in the yard. The conductor radios the engineer to start stopping. No response. He calls again. Nothing. And he calls a third time urgently to stop the train. The train keeps rolling, slow and steady, toward the bad switch. And what the conductor doesn't know is that up in the cab, the engineer has just made a decision that's about to break everything. He has seen the same misaligned switch. He's done the math in his head, and he's concluded that with the rails wet, he doesn't have the distance to fully stop the train before it reaches the switch. Instead of stopping, he's decided to do something faster. Something that in his 35 years on the railroad, he has probably done before on quieter days without anyone getting hurt. He's decided to slow the train as much as possible, climb down off the moving locomotive, sprint ahead, and fix the switch by hand. Then he would jog back and he would reboard the locomotive as it catches up to him. The whole maneuver, ideally, should take less than 1 minute.
And it has a scientific name for doing that, actually. It's ghost riding the whip.
Neato.
Very scientific.
I love that. Okay, that'll be the next shirt design. Before he leaves the cab, he reaches for the brakes. And I'm going to do my best to explain locomotive braking. So have some patience with me here, folks, because I've never done it. But locomotive have 3 different braking systems. The first is the independent air brake. It only applies the brakes on the locomotive itself, not any of the cars behind it. Engineers use it to nudge a locomotive around a yard, slow and controlled. So you can think of this as the parking brake on your car. That's the best analogy I could think of for that. The second is the automatic air brake. This is the big one. It uses compressed air sent through a hose running the length of the train, applying brakes on every freight car at once. This is what stops a train on the open main line. But there's a catch. For it to work, that air hose has to actually be hooked up between the locomotive and the cars. On this movement, the hoses aren't connected. You don't bother charging up the brake lines on every single car when you are just moving them around a rail yard at walking pace or jogging pace for Zach. So on this particular train, in this particular moment, the air brake, it does not work. It's not working. This would be, in my opinion, like towing a big old trailer and not having any brakes connected on the trailer.
Because you're only moving around the block.
Correct. The third system is the dynamic brake. This one's clever. Instead of using friction or air, it flips the electric motors on the axles into reverse. I had a feeling you'd like this. Instead of generating motion, they generate resistance. Dynamic brakes can slow a train powerfully and smoothly without burning up brake shoes. Now, on the engineer's control stand, the dynamic brake and the throttle share the same lever. One lever sets the power level, notch 1 through notch 8, with notch 8 being full throttle. A second separate lever is the selector with 3 positions: off, setup, and brake. To activate the dynamic brake, you have to do 2 things in sequence. Move the selector level into the brake position, and then push the power level to choose how hard you want the dynamic braking to be applied. Notch 8 would be like max brakes, all the braking. Notch 8 on the power level with the selector still in off would give you maximum acceleration. Same lever, same notch 8, 2 completely opposite outcomes. The engineer of CSX 8888 fully applies the independent air brake. He partially applies the automatic air brake too, even though the hoses aren't connected. It's a habit, basically. And then he reaches for the dynamic brake. He pushes the power lever to notch 8. But what he does not do is move that selector level
Off of the off.
into the brake position. Whew. And folks, as there always is in these like Swiss cheese disaster scenarios, there is one more thing. CSX 8888 is equipped with what is called an alerter system, the railroad version of a dead man switch. Every so often, it pings the engineer with a tone and a flashing light, and it demands acknowledgement. Hey, bud, you
Look at
still
me.
there? Are we doing this thing? If the engineer doesn't respond within about 40 seconds, the alerter assumes he's incapacitated, dumps the brakes, and cuts the throttle.
Okay, I'm good.
It's specifically designed to handle situations like a heart attack in the cab, a no conscious engineer scenario, but the alerter has a little quirky situation. When the independent air brake is fully applied, like really cranked all the way over, the way that the engineer in this situation has just done, the system assumes the locomotive is parked. And if it's parked, there's no one to alert. So the alerter shuts itself off, which means the dead man switch is now disabled. The engineer climbs down out of the cab. He is out of the train. He walks around the front of the locomotive, descends the ladder, and steps off into the gravel beside the rails. The train is creeping along behind him at about 8 miles per hour. He runs ahead. He reaches the misaligned switch, and he throws it into the right position, and he turns around just as 8888 is rolling up to him. And he sees it.
Coming quickly.
This train is speeding up. The throttle that he believed that he set as a brake is set as accelerate. The locomotive is powering and it's gaining speed quick. He grabs for the ladder. The handrails are slick because of the rain. His boots slip on the metal rungs, and he gets one hand on the grab iron and the other hand fighting. And the locomotive gaining speed drags him along the gravel beside the rails, 80 feet, long enough that he has time to fully understand what's happening to him before he loses his grip and falls to the ground. And he's scraped up, but not seriously hurt. He picks himself up. He runs back into the yard and he tells the first CSX employee that he can find that there's a loose train. The train by then is long gone. 40 feet above the rail yard, in a glass-walled control tower, a senior CSX train master named John Hosfeld is scanning the electronic map of the yard's main tracks. Hosfeld is a 31-year railroad veteran, an Army vet who came to the railroad after his service for the steady work and the pension. He's a supervisor based out of a yard in Kenton, about 70 miles south of Walbridge. But on this particular day, he's at Stanley Yard because he came up on a special excursion train that morning. And here is where the story gets one of its weirdest pieces of luck. The excursion train that Hosfeld arrived on isn't a normal train. It's an Operation Lifesaver train.
Oh.
It's a public awareness program where CSX runs a special train along the route to promote rail safety in the communities it passes through. Cute. It's like a reading rainbow bus, but for trains. The train is full of police officers, government officials, and reporters. So, a little more serious than like a library on wheels. The Ohio lieutenant governor is on board. Operation Lifesaver brought roughly 120 law enforcement personnel and rail safety officials directly into the path of what is about to be the worst runaway in modern America railroad history. They are, by accident, perfectly positioned to respond to it. I mean, that really is crazy.
I could be your hero, baby.
Yeah, a whole bunch of them. Hausfeld is in the tower when a light on the electronic map flashes white. A freight train has run a switch and is rolling onto the main line into high-speed traffic. In 31 years on the railroad, he has never seen that happen. He bolts out of the tower with a foreman named Mike Smith. They jump into Smith's silver Dodge Dakota pickup and they floor it. The plan at this point is simple. The train is just coasting, they assume. They'll race ahead to the next grade crossing, hop out, and reboard the same way the engineer fell off of it, by grabbing the ladder. 12 minutes later, they reach the first crossing. They're calculating they're well ahead of the train. They look up at the tracks, and there is nothing there. It takes a moment for that to register. If the train were coasting, they'd be ahead of it by now. The fact that they are at this crossing with completely empty rails in front of them can only mean one thing.
It go fast.
It already passed them. Hausfeld would tell Reader's Digest later, it's not coasting, it's under power. And from this point on, CSX 8888 stops being a problem and becomes a massive crisis. CSX dispatchers start clearing the line. Police across multiple Ohio counties start blocking grade crossings. News helicopters scramble. An air ambulance starts shadowing the train in case it derails. The train's speed climbs from 40 miles per hour to 50. Just like, that's booking.
It is.
There's no yogging you can do to keep up with that. She rolls south through Dunbridge, then through downtown Bowling Green, the college town home to Bowling Green State University, and about 30,000 people. Police clear the crossings just ahead of her. Civilians line the sidewalks to watch the spectacle. A meat processing plant, whose loading dock sits feet from the tracks, gets evacuated minutes before the train thunders past. CSX has a playbook for runaways, which is wonderful. That's very important. Step 1, try to derail the train safely in open country before it reaches anywhere populated. The first attempt happens at a town called North Baltimore, sometimes referenced in CSX timetables as Galatia. A signal maintainer races a portable derailleur out to the tracks. So a portable derailleur is a wedge-shaped piece of metal that you bolt onto the rail. And the idea is that when a train rolls over it at low speed, the wedge lifts the wheels just enough to put it on the wrong side of the rail. And the train basically does a cute little hop off of the track. The idea is that it's supposed to be low speed.
Mm-hmm.
Portable derailleurs are designed for trains that are creeping at about 5 to 10 miles per hour. This shit's about to be launched into space.
It's a real jump now.
CSX 8888 hits the derailleur at almost 50 miles per hour, and the derailleur is shoved aside like a Coke can. The train doesn't even slow down. That was cute. Step 2, divert the runaway onto a siding at a sharp enough angle that the train derails when it tries to take the curve.
It happens.
Yep, it's another good idea. CSX dispatchers throw a switch to push 8888 into the Galatea siding, hoping that the high-speed turn will tip the train over.
Which also
But
sounds really safe with the molten
I know.
whatever.
I know. Guess what? She takes the siding curve at full speed and she is locked. She's locked. They try the same trick at a place called Mortimer and they have the same result. The CSX 8888 is moving fast enough that her own momentum is keeping her stable on the rails. Step 3, shoot the train.
What part do you shoot? It doesn't have any tires to blow.
I want to pause here and acknowledge that shoot the train is on its face a deeply unserious sounding plan. But, Zach, it is based on real engineering. On the side of the locomotive, near the fuel tank, there is a small red button about the size of a thumbprint.
Oh, God.
So you better have a damn sharpshooter in your town.
Or a lot of spray from a shotgun.
Yeah. And that little red button is an emergency fuel cutoff switch. If you press and hold that button, after several seconds, fuel flow to the engine stops. The locomotive starves and it dies. The challenge.
And only coasts for 6 miles.
This is so insane. Obviously, we've got some challenges ahead of us, folks. This is, one of the final scenes of Jaws. The button is small, the train is moving at 50 miles per hour, and pressing it requires sustained pressure for several seconds. None of this stops anyone from trying, which, what are you going to do? You're up Schitt's Creek. North of a town called Dunkirk, on a stretch of U.S. Route 68, 2 members of the Ohio State Highway Patrol get the green light. We've got Sergeant Tom Gwynn, a retired Marine and a 10-year veteran of the patrol, who takes up position with a 12-gauge shotgun loaded with buckshot. And we've got Trooper Al Leitenberger, who takes up position with another shotgun loaded with slugs. Zach, what's the difference between those?
One sprays a bunch of little pellets, and one is a really tight group, more like a regular bullet.
Thank you. They've been told the button is a small red feature on the side of the engine. Godspeed.
I'm like, I can shoot that.
CSX, in their hurry, has not specified that there's another small red feature on the side of the engine, the cap on the fuel tank. Both men, when 8888 thunders past, hit the cap. They don't hit the button. The cap is fine. The train is fine, and the train keeps going. And even, honestly, can we just give a little moment of recognition that they hit anything?
Well, a train's pretty
that's
big.
incredible. They hit a small red thing on the side of this train.
You said the cap was fine, so I'm assuming they missed.
No, they hit the cap, both of them.
Okay.
They hit the cap. The only issue is that cap was not the thing they were supposed to hit. So even if they had hit the right button perfectly, a single shotgun pellet was not going to hold it down long enough to actually shut the engine off. But this is the moment that becomes the most shared piece of trivia from the whole incident. The day Ohio State Patrol officers tried to shoot a runaway train and missed by an inch and a half. So that's become a piece of trivia, but it wouldn't have even mattered. CSX would later somewhat sheepishly deny that they had authorized the shooting. They would, even more sheepishly, walk that denial back. Sergeant Gwynn would receive a letter of appreciation from the governor of Ohio. Because you're a sharp shooter, Sergeant Gwynn. By this point, the Runaway is almost an hour into its journey. Speeds are bouncing between 40 and 50 miles per hour. Police have closed more than 100 grade crossings, snarling traffic across 3 counties. Local news channels are broadcasting helicopter footage live. CNN picks up the feed and goes national. Within minutes, sitting President George W. Bush is being briefed on the situation. Oh, goodness. And on the rails, ahead of CSX 8888, there's a problem. A different train, designated Q636, is rolling north on the same single-man line, heading directly toward the Runaway at 30 miles per hour. These two trains are on a collision course. At the controls of Q636 is 48-year-old engineer named Jess Knowlton. With him in the cab is 30-year-old conductor named Terry Forson. Knowlton has been on the railroad for 28 years. And poor Forson has been on the job 14 months.
It's a pretty good run.
A few minutes after 1 in the afternoon, the radio in their cab crackles. The dispatcher tells them to clear the main line now. Get into a siding ASAP. But the nearest siding is still 10 miles ahead. Knowlton pushes Q636's throttle to maximum and runs north as fast as he can with 57 cars trailing behind him. He blasts into the siding, 15 miles per hour over the speed limit, throws the switch behind him, comes to a stop and exhales. And then the radio crackles again. The dispatcher has a question. Q636's lone locomotive is a CSX SD42, just like 8888. Same horsepower, same braking systems. If Knowlton and Forson are willing, and there's no requirement that they are willing, they could uncouple from their 57 cars in the siding, get back onto the main line, and chase the Runaway.
Oh, and they'd probably be able to catch it because they wouldn't have all the tonnage behind them.
They could try to catch it from behind, couple onto the rear car.
And then
I'm
tug.
not making this shit up. And use their own dynamic brakes to slow it down before it reaches the next danger zone.
Houston, I'm in.
This is so insane. That danger zone is real and it's close, about 15 miles south. The main line runs through the town of Kenton. North of Kenton, the track drops into a long downhill grade that ends in a sharp curve, followed by another S curve.
Okay.
The posted speed limit through that section is 25 miles per hour.
So this train that nobody can slow down is doing probably 50-ish
Yeah, and it might go faster
downhill because it'll be full throttle still.
Yes, all of the calculations say that this train will almost certainly derail in this moment. And right alongside that section of track are fuel storage tanks, gas stations, and homes.
Love it.
Yeah. Evacuations in Kenton were already underway. Knowlton looks across the cap at Forson, and Forson is 14 months out of training. Knowlton has 28 years on the railroad. And Knowlton says, according to the Reader's Digest account, "Hey kid, you know what we're doing?" And Forson swallows hard.
Saving the world.
We're racing against something head on. And they agree. They're in. He picks up his cell phone and he calls his wife, Holly. He doesn't have time to explain, but he tells her to turn on the news. And he tells her this may be the last time they talk. And then he says goodbye. Forson overhears the conversation and thinks about calling home. Before he can decide, the earth begins to shake.
Because the train's coming.
The train's coming. Knowlton has been around locomotives for 28 years, and he has never heard one running at full throttle on the main line. The sound is something that he doesn't have a category for. What thunders past them is a locomotive dragging 47 cars at full speed. They get their orders, secure their cars in the siding, disconnect the locomotive, move it to the north end of the siding, get back on the main line behind the Runaway and catch it. They have about 10 minutes before this train hits the downhill curve into Kenton. Their locomotive, though, is pointed the wrong way. Reverse is my best gear. Q636's engine is facing north, which is the direction that they came from, and the Runaway is south. And there is no time to turn it around.
Yeah, I'm not even sure how they would besides finding another siding that loops.
No. Oy. Locomotives are not designed to run fast in reverse. CSX safety rules cap a solo locomotive at 30 miles per hour, partly because of derailment risk and partly because the engineer's view to the rear is heavily blocked by the long engine housing in front of him. He's going to have to break that rule. Bad. So, as Q636's locomotive comes back onto the main line, Forsen climbs out of the cab and he makes his way down the narrow gangway that runs along the side of the engine. He takes up a position on the rear platform, which, since they're running in reverse, is now the front. From there, he can see the track ahead, and Knowlton cannot. The engine housing blocks his view. So, there you go. Knowlton pushes the throttle to notch 8. Full power. The locomotive accelerates fast, past 30 miles per hour, past 40, and even past 60. They hit 66 miles per hour, which is
Another
crazy.
22, and they would have gone back in time.
So true. Woo. Within 5 miles, they catch sight of CSX 8888 ahead of them. Its rearmost car is a hopper full of corn.
Okay, well, at least it's not the stuff that's going to explode.
So true. And as Q636's locomotive closes the distance, corn kernels are blowing back off the open top and they're pelting them in the face.
Oh, God, it's like hail, but it's corn.
So Forsen is signaling to Knowlton to give him an indicator of like how close they are because he can't see over the huge thing blocking his view.
Yeah, so he's basically walking down that side rail and giving hand signals like when somebody's guiding you into a parking spot.
Yes.
If you need that thing. I'm not here to judge.
I mean, you do you. And they get the signaling right because they are able to match speed. Now comes the moment all of this has been building toward. The actual coupling. They have to physically connect their locomotive to the rear of this train.
While doing 50 plus miles an hour.
Yes. It's just absolutely insane. So they are now 90 seconds from the downhill into Kenton. Forsen prepares for impact. So he sits down on the steel gangway and he presses his back against the cab door. He wraps both of his arms around a steel pipe as Knowlton is inching closer and closer to this last corn, the corn holder. Yeah. So Forsen, from his position, notices something crucial. The coupler on the back of the Runaway's last car, the knuckle in railroad terminology, is open, which is good.
So they can just bump it and it'll close.
It is in a position that lets it grab another coupler. So if Knowlton can bring their locomotive in cleanly, the coupler should mate on first contact. The gap between the two trains narrows fast. Too fast. They're approaching at 10 times the normal coupling speed. And if they hit too hard, they're going to knock the rear hopper off the track and they'll derail everybody. It's just game over. Knowlton eases off the throttle and taps the brake. And at 50 miles per hour, then 40, they are 2 car lengths away, and then wham. It's jarring, but it is not catastrophic. And all of a sudden, Knowlton sees a thumbs up through the window. They're connected. So now he has a different problem. Locomotive tug of war. So the Runaway is still under full power. Q636's locomotive is at the rear. It's trying to drag everything backward. In between, every coupler is pulled tight. So if even one of them snaps, the entire train will derail. He has to bleed off the speed very gradually. He lets the slack settle between the cars, and then he applies full dynamic braking, and he waits for it to take. And it takes. The Runaway slows. Starts at 50, and he eventually gets it down to 10.
Oh, wow.
But then the speed starts climbing again.
Because it gets over the crest of the hill.
Because they have crested the top of that hill. And gravity is now pulling 3,000 tons of freight downhill.
With an engine that's still trying to drag it that way anyhow.
Correct. The Runaway is back up to 22 miles per hour. Knowlton leans on the dynamic brake. At 22 miles per hour, he feels it grab. He has no chance of stopping the Runaway completely, not with the throttle still wide open at the front of the train. But if he can hold it at 25, they will at least make that S curve without derailing.
Yeah.
And seconds later, Q636 Locomotive rounds the first bend into Kenton. Below the tracks, Knowlton sees the fuel depot. He sees all of the things that are highly flammable around them. They make the bend. They make the S-curve. Then they're rolling through Kenton itself, slower with every yard of track. Because now that momentum is starting to slow down a little bit. Waiting on the south side of town beside a closed-off grade crossing on Ohio State Route 31 is John Hosfeld. He has been racing south this entire time on Interstate 75, hitting nearly 100 miles per hour through most of that journey, listening to the chase on the radio. And he has positioned himself at this crossing because it is where, if Knowlton has done his job, the Runaway will be slow enough for a human
to jump on.
And when 888 rolls into view, she's down to 12 miles per hour.
And according to my wife, that's just a yog.
That's just a light yog. So Hosfeld had jumped on slow-moving trains in the yard plenty of time, but 12 miles per hour isn't yard speed. And this guy is 52 years old, which, bless you, but that's a lot to jump on a moving vehicle or moving train. As the locomotive sweeps past him, he takes 2 quick side steps, throws both hands at the railing, and kicks his left foot up the ladder. His foot catches a step. The train pulls him off the pavement. He gets his weight onto the ladder. He gets into the cab and slams the throttle off. At the back of the train, Knowlton feels the power drop instantly. He turns to Forson. It's over and nobody's hurt. And a few minutes later on the radio, Hosfeld makes the announcement that becomes the official end of the Crazy Eights incident. This is Mr. Hosfeld aboard the Runaway train, and it's stopped. It's over. In just under 2 hours, CSX 8888 had traveled 66 miles. She had crossed over 3 counties. She had passed through downtown Bowling Green and a college campus. She had been shot at, derailed at, and chased. Her brake shoes have ground themselves into nothing. But the craziest part of this is that no one died. And there was no massive cleanup from this.
Which the chemical spill would have been the biggest impact of it.
Yes. It's so incredible. Within 2 hours, 2 investigators from the Federal Railroad Administration and 1 from the National Transportation Safety Board are on the scene. They check headlights, horn, the bell, the sound system, the auxiliary lights, the alerter, and every system on this locomotive functions precisely as designed. The only thing that they can't test is the brakes because they are
smoked.
They're gone. The locomotive is not determined to be the problem. And we know that because I told us the beginning of this story. But they have to go talk to the engineer. He's already at the yard. He is scraped up, but he's otherwise unharmed. And he admits immediately and without hedging what he did. He set the throttle, not the dynamic brake. He left the cab. He couldn't get back on, and he saw it all happen, and there was nothing he could do. The FRA's incident memo walks through what investigators call a sequence of gross errors in judgment. And, we don't need to overhedge what he did, but obviously there were a series of judgments that were not smart that got made. And
Well,
ultimately,
I think it was just a little bit of panic. He didn't have a lot of
Yeah.
time to get in front of this thing, so he flipped some stuff. He's experienced, he trusted himself, and it's like somebody not getting their car in park when they pull into a spot or something. It happens.
Totally. And what they determined, which is the same with our airline episodes where we talk about the Swiss cheese theory, is that any of the errors that were made individually
No
would
big
have
deal.
been recoverable. But the fact that everything was stacked together, you get a train running away under power, the dead man switch disabled, no way to stop it from inside the cab because there's nobody inside of the cab. All of those things led to the issue that we're dealing with now. So the FRA memo is blunt about the engineer. He should not have left the moving locomotive. That was the first and largest mistake. And that was really the decision that preconditioned everything else that followed. The memo also notes that the dynamic brake mistake, the wrong selector position, was the specific kind of error that could plausibly be made by any engineer in a hurry. The control stand was effectively designed to allow this mistake. Like, it's stupid. That was dumb. CSX never discloses the engineer's name, and they've also never publicly disclosed what discipline he received. He was basically doing a maneuver where if you work in this industry is pretty darn common to do.
I wouldn't say super common, but he tried to radio for his people that were supposed to help him, and he got nothing.
No, the ground guys tried to radio, but he didn't hear it because he had already hopped off.
Oh, I mixed those up.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, he was already like, I'm off of the train. They're like radioing and nobody hears them. So this practice of jumping off of a moving train is a violation of CSX policy. So that's just something for us to note, is that they do not allow that to happen.
Publicly.
Correct. The deeper investigation is into the design itself. EMD locomotives of this generation use that combined throttle and dynamic brake handle with a separate selector that has to be in the right position for the throttle to work as a brake. After 2001, that design started to face very real scrutiny. Newer locomotives, including the rebuilt SD43, got reconfigured cabs with separate throttle and brake handles. You cannot accidentally push a brake into full power if there is no shared lever to push. So, in the aftermath, Hausfeld, Knowlton, and Forson became national figures very briefly. They had their 15 minutes of fame. They appear on morning shows. They're profiled in Reader's Digest. They're even invited to meet President George W. Bush, who hugs them, shakes their hands, and thanks them on behalf of the country. However, this is late summer of 2001, and it is days before September 11th. And obviously, the news focus changes.
Shifted quickly.
It shifted quite quickly. So all three men keep working for CSX, which is pretty incredible. In 2010, Tony Scott's Unstoppable hits theaters. And it has 4 things that are accurate. And
one of them is that they were on a train.
One of them is the fact that there's a train involved. As for CSX 8888 herself, she went back to work for another 8 years.
After the brakes got fixed.
Yes. In 2009, her prime mover, the diesel engine that generates the electricity, failed catastrophically, which I know a thing or two about.
Failed engines.
She sat on a deadline in Corbin for 4 years. And several rail museums actually asked to keep
buy
her.
it. Yeah.
CSX declined them all. And in 2013, she was rebuilt into the SD-43 in Boise, Idaho. And she got all kinds of upgraded parts. And she got a new number, which I'm bummed about because
should have kept the quadruple eights.
Her number was iconic. But now she's CSX 4389. And as far as my research shows,
still
running. That's incredible. So there you go. If you pass a train on your commute, you might just be passing a little piece of history. And Zach, that's our story for today.
I was worried when we talked about it being the most catastrophic runaway train incident that there was going to be a lot of deaths or toxic issues. It's a pretty sweet ending, actually, for how dramatic that could have been.
This is just an American story. I have some insane ones coming your way that you got to think in the U.S.
She loves a disaster. She's obsessed.
In the U.S., we don't use passenger trains, really.
Not the way that others do, yeah.
The ones that I'm going to tell you are devastating, but they don't happen here.
Even Amtrak and everything that we have here is, it's so expensive to ride the train that it's better off driving.
Oh my gosh. Well, again, Michael, thank you for the recommendation. If you're listening to this and you have a recommendation, please email us at finalboardingcallpodcast@gmail.com and we'll shoot you over some stickers as a thank you. And if you enjoyed this episode, please rate, review, and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. And join us next time when we will be exploring another transportation disaster story. Until then, remember to stow your trables.
Your trables.
Fasten your seatbelts and prepare for the unexpected, because not every trip reaches its final destination.
And go buy some merch.
Toot. That's my
I'm glad they made sure the train horn worked.
Yeah. Bye, you guys. Bye.